What do you think of the response or lack thereof response from our government? This government, it's still got its 917 million contract with Elbit Systems, the biggest Israeli arms producer or technology company. It's still leaving in place the Israeli ambassador. It's still not closing the Israeli embassy. It's got these two-way arms deals. What do we need to do next, do you think?
I want to be an optimist about all of this, but I think these new definitions are going to stifle talk, and you need to have an honest conversation, right? In order to solve anything, you need to have an honest conversation and figure out where the problems are, right? Once you figure out where the issues are, where the problems are, then you can resolve it. But, we don't even talk about Islamophobia as a problem. We don't even treat Indigenous people here with respect. So how are we going to start treating Indigenous people in another part of the world with respect? I just think that the cultural makeup and the landscape that we have here, there's not a ground for us to have an honest conversation. I think if you can't have an honest conversation, we can never resolve it. I want to be optimistic about it, and I think there is a level of optimism because I think with social media and I think with everything that's gone on, I think the mask has fallen of the Israeli ethno-state. I think the mask has fallen, and I think people are beginning to see what it really is. I even think Donald Trump is actually doing a lot of good in the world in the sense of how chaotic he is, because he's throwing out the world order and he's throwing out international law and he's throwing out the rules-based order, and people are beginning to see that actually it doesn't matter who you are. If it's all about capital at the end of the day and it's all about the money. I mean, we now are okay with, not us, but just say in general, acknowledging it's indigenous land. But what good is that when you've already taken it over and built the housing development on it and mining it and all the rest of it? It's all good when you land on a Qantas flight and say, we acknowledge the owners of the land. But what comes with that acknowledgement? Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of where we're at with these conversations. Is like these conversations never usually shift until the rich or whoever, these business corporations or whatever, get what they want. It's the same with what's happening with Ukraine. They have to hand over 50% of the minerals from the ground in order to have, security guarantees from the United States. I mean, that's economic colonialism in one way. They're between Putin, and a dictator here, and then between another dictator here, essentially. And, they have to give up their minerals for one of them. And that's the only way that they can have security and freedom. There's no other decision for them to make. And you can see the world reacting to that, to Donald Trump saying it to Zelensky when he brought him in the White House. And you can see the visceral reaction from the world and people are condemning it and all the rest of it. But I'm like, this is what happens in Africa and the Middle East every single day. This is what happens all the time. But I think once it hits a European country and it hits white people and they see it at what it is, which is just, capitalism and money doesn't discriminate between color because the rich are getting richer, and they've already, taken all the money and resources that they want and they control. Where are they coming to next?